Thank you, Josh. So I want to start today with, again, gratitude for IJS because about 10 minutes before I logged on to lead this meditation today, a beautiful Kavanah poem landed in my inbox from my colleague, Rabbi Paul Kipnis, who's a part of the clergy leadership program cohort, those of us who have been through the amazing training at IJS. And so I want to set this Kavanah and dedicate our practice today with these beautiful words from Rabbi Kipnis. This is a prayer he wrote called A Prayer for Those Who Lost Their Homes in the Fires. Elohim Velohei Dorotenu, our God and God of all generations. We turn to you shaken by loss, our hearts heavy with grief. The flames have taken much, the walls that sheltered our family, the keepsakes that told our stories, the irreplaceable treasures of our children's laughter and growth. And yet, we stand amidst the ashes, holding gratitude for what remains, for the miracle of life, for the pets that survived, for the arms that still hold one another tightly, unyieldingly. Source of our strength, bless us with resilience to rebuild, with courage to move forward, and with faith in the power that renews creation daily. As the earth regenerates from destruction, so too may we find the strength to rebuild our lives. Teach us to create anew, to build homes that will once again hold our laughter, to fill them with precious keepsakes, recreated, sacred symbols to pass on l'dor v'dor from generation to generation. May these new treasures embody the love, values, and resilience that define our family. And may the memories we craft today become blessings for the future. And may your light guide us, illuminating the path from devastation to renewal, from despair to peace, from loss to wholeness. Baruch atah Adonai, hamechadesh kol yom ma'aseh b'reshit. Blessed are you who renews creation daily. For those people who would like to have the words of Rabbi Kipnis's poem that I just shared, I'll put that in the chat now. This is not on the source sheet that I will be sharing because the poem was just sent out just this morning. So I'm including that here. So it won't fit in one chat. So just bear with me and I'll get that pasted into the chat before the end of our session today. Yai da da da, ya da da, yai da da da, da da da, yai da da da, ya da da, yai da da, da da da, da da da. Yai da da da, ya da da. Yai da da da, ya da da, ya da da. Yai da. This nigun, this wordless melody that I just shared was written by my colleague, Rabbi Lori Matzkin, and it accompanies some of the words from our morning liturgy that Rabbi Kipnis used at the end of this moving poem and prayer that he shared. So I want to thank Rachel for putting the source sheet up because the Hebrew, the transliterated Hebrew for this is on the source sheet. And we can sing it together with the words from our liturgy. Ha-mechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tamid. In the goodness of the divine, creation is renewed each day. So thank you to Rachel for putting that up. You'll see the transliteration there. So please join me. You can stick with the nigun, the wordless melody, if you'd like, or especially if you don't have the ability to see the source sheet now, or you can use the transliterated Hebrew there if you would like. Ha-mechadesh, ha-mechadesh b'tuvo, b'tuvo, b'chol yom tamid. Ha-mechadesh, ha-mechadesh b'tuvo, ha-mechadesh b'tuvo, b'chol yom tamid. So as I mentioned, these beautiful words come from our morning liturgy, the first blessing before the Shema. And the power of these words is underscored by the fact that these words appear twice in a long piece, kind of an introduction to the blessing itself. So clearly this idea that when we awake each day, we have the opportunity to recreate ourselves, right? To start again. I was thinking about this concept in our liturgy when I was thinking about the idea that we are in what is called a period of the wolf moon. Something I learned about recently that comes from a Native American tradition, that in the winter, in this particular time, when there's a full moon, that according to Native American tradition, you could more clearly hear the packs of wolves howling outside the villages from amidst the cold and deep snows of winter. So this wolf moon is a particularly important time of light in the depths of winter. According to the NASA website, the moon will appear full for about 3 days around this time. So it started on Sunday, and it'll appear to be full in this luminous and vibrant way, even as late as Wednesday morning. And last night, this full moon passed in front of the planet Mars. So this is where we are in the Hebrew month of Tevet, that this full moon in our calendar as well, but especially auspicious in other scientific traditions and Native American traditions too. The blessing that we say before the Shema offers gratitude for all of the lights in the universe. And when we think about these lights, we think about them illuminating things in our world that are out there. It makes it possible for us to discern what we see. We could say that about the sun, about the moon, and the other celestial things in our celestial universe. So I want to link this to a very powerful teaching that was shared with me this week by Rabbi Sam Fine-Smith. I am currently enrolled in an IJS course called Where the Light Comes Down. And this is a beautiful weekly study and practice from the texts of the Maggid of Kochnitz. And so each week we study according to the Torah portion cycle from the Maggid. So I'm going to read this as an excerpt from Sam's teaching from Parshat Vayechi, the last section of the book of Genesis that we read last week. In this, he says, there are times of suffering and constriction in our lives that might feel like going down to Mitzrayim. This is related to Metzarim in Hebrew, which means the narrow place. In such moments, it may be hard to sense that God is present with us in our pain. However, in our meditation practice, we can learn to cultivate an awareness of God's eternal loving presence, even in the midst of our affliction and travail. The most direct path I know for doing so is one that is described in Zen, Buddhist, and Taoist sources. And it says, turn the light around. That is, turn your attention away from outward phenomena, in other words, things that change in our world, and toward the light of consciousness itself. So this really powerful idea of turning the light around, that so much of the time we're feeling the light coming this way, but when it comes inside of us, this is as if it's for me, like a preparatory period for getting ready to reflect and refract that light out back into the world. That's really what we're doing in our practice, is taking that break to internalize it. Whereas one of my colleagues told me today, maybe this is like photosynthesis, right? Like we're taking the light in order to prepare to send it back out into the world, to show up in a light-filled and light-reflecting way. This made me, when I learned about this with Sam through this teaching this week, it made me think of another teaching that has been a big part of my own experience in the last couple of years, this idea of turning the camera back. So in other words, we turn our camera out to capture pictures and essences of what we see in the world. But the idea is, by turning the camera back in on ourselves, is that we're actually having a chance to discover our own wisdom and light that are inside. So often in life, we're seeking out there for the right answers or for the path forward. But actually, some of the most powerful internal data lives right inside of us, right, to illuminate a path forward. And so this idea, and I included a quote by one of my teachers, C. Otto Scharmer, who says, we turn the camera back, the mirror back on planet self. I love that language because it kind of evokes what we experience when we look up at the moon, right? But we are a planet like the planet Earth or Mars, who passed before us in this lunar cycle. We turn the camera back on planet self, including our relationships, to see what we can learn by going inside before we then send that light back out into the world. This is really, I think, for me, what this text from our morning service is talking about, Hamachadesh B'tuvo, that we are constantly renewing ourselves. I almost think of this as like solar panels, right, that are receiving the light and then sending that energy back out into the world. So thank you, Rachel, if you can take down the source sheet, and I invite you now to take your seat as we bring these concepts into our own sit today. We'll sit for about 8 minutes or so in quiet, and I'll bring us back with the words, the melody that we sang earlier today. בטובו בכל יום תמיד. המחדש, המחדש בטובו, המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody. And we will have a chance, if you can stay around for some conversation and reflection in just a moment. If you need to leave us, we wish you farewell. Tzeitzchem l'shalom. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel. And in the meantime, right now, we have an opportunity for those who are remembering loved ones to recite Mourner's Kaddish. We'll put the text of the Kaddish up on the screen. Thanks to Rachel for helping with that and for all of our support today. And if you'd like to, in the chat, put the name of anybody you were holding in heart or mind as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish together. You're welcome to, there we go. And you're welcome to unmute if you'd like to say Kaddish with me. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba
Amen.
Ya'alma v'yirach Chirutei v'yamlish malchutei v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei v'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba levarach Ya'alamu Amen Amen. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitpaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudshah brichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata v'tushbechata v'nechemata ta'miranda alma v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Hey Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru Amen.
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 So thank you, everybody, and we'll bring Susan back up here and have a chance for some questions and answers. If you have a question, please, as usual, just mark it in all caps with question in the chat box. That helps us to see it clearly. That would be useful. And if you want to share any reflections about things that came up for you during the practice get together, you're welcome to. Susan, it was so interesting to see the way you were working with the idea of light and reflecting back. I was also, my son and I came home last night and it was dark and we saw the planet alignment that's also happening right now. I was like, look up, because it's the only time you're gonna in your life or mine or anybody's that we're gonna see this. Um, and uh and so, as I usually do, I wonder for you, you mentioned you're in Louisville before we got on, and not in your regular sunny habitat, I think, snowier than it is here in Chicago. Um, and I just wonder for you, I personally right now I find, that this year has certainly started in a dark place, with literally dark skies and um, both for natural and unnatural reasons. And um, yeah, how are you trying to kind of source some of that light, at this still a very dark time of the year, where Hanukkah is only recently in the rearview mirror. And yeah, how's it going for you?
Yeah, caught between snow and fire is how I feel. So, I'll just say two things. One is something that Sam taught yesterday, because as a part of this course, we assemble as a cohort on a monthly basis, and he teaches us in relation to what we've been studying each week. And he reminded me, but with a different visual, is that when the sun goes down, we often feel like it's not, the light is gone. But we know empirically the light is not gone. It's just we can't see it. So this light filled analogy, I guess I would say, that reminds some of us of the idea of there's a veil, right, in Hasidic and Kabbalistic thinking that covers what is there. And so it is a mistake to think that that is gone. It is there. It's just we can't see it. So I think that's very much where I am right now, is reminding myself that the sun is still there. It's just feeling like it's not. And so my response to that on a practical level is to continue to reach out to people, all the, in that area, all the way from Ventura and Oxnard, north of Los Angeles, all the way down to Orange County. It's just to continue to reach out to people, some of whom I haven't talked to in a number of years, but they're my colleagues, they're my friends, they're there. I have their contact information, right? And just reaching out to them and letting them know. This morning I was on the phone with a friend in Los Angeles who took in someone whose home was completely destroyed. And she was on her way home to try to rescue her animal, her dog, her pet, and didn't make it back to do so. And so my friend's been with her, providing housing, helping her get clothing, relocating her to a place where she can stay for longer term. I mean, this is how we remind ourselves that the light is there, but we just can't see it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'm curious for others, to respond to that question, if it's a useful invitation, is, ways that you're trying to either uncover or remind yourself that the light is here at this, at what is, for I think a lot of us, a really a dark time. So I'd be curious to hear, reflections, from folks there. I find myself these days just so I think sensitive to light. I'm looking outside right now, and like this morning, it was this very dark, thick clouds, and there was snow and everything, and now it's sunny, and I mean cold, but sunny, and it just makes such an enormous difference being in the presence of light. And so the idea that we could have, that we can, there's something so true and embodied, and also a spiritual practice of sort of harvesting that at times when it's not readily available. Like I think the image of a solar battery, right? Like, you gotta soak it up and have that available in that it's accessible. It can be accessible for us.
Yeah.
And I see some some comments coming in here. Right. On a dark night when there's snow on the ground, it lights the highway. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Um, and Liz says, I find the light in those small acts of kindness and kinship, and the moments of connecting with each other. Yeah, beautiful. Um, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for these comments. Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't want to mention it. We're still really in Tevet. It's too early to talk about Tu B'Shvat, because Tu B'Shvat is already too early to talk about the spring even, but really to sit with it. And it is interesting also that, like, as we start the book of Shemot, right, that whereas light is obviously a very prominent theme at the beginning of Breshit, there's a different different aspect, right? In Shemot, I mean, the most prominent light is probably the light at the burning bush of a fire, not the sun, but of a fire, and we're really learning something about, a fire that doesn't consume, just how miraculous that is. Because we're certainly living with an Eish Ochla right now, a consuming fire, but a fire that V'hasne einenu ukal, something that is not then used up. And maybe that's also a lesson for us there about the kind of light we're seeking to cultivate for ourselves is not the kind that gets used up, right? It's not a finite resource, but is actually something that I know certainly when Sam teaches this about the light of awareness, that is a light that is just inexhaustible, right? That it's always burning, and radiating heat and light, but without consuming what
Right.
it does.
A ner tamid, an eternal light of sorts
Yeah,
that we have
Susan
in our
Rubenstein just did
tradition.
that. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And Susan, we're all saying
There you
ner tamid.
go.
Um, the other thing that he said yesterday in our Zoom learning together, which I found a really powerful reminder, he said that if a candle is lit, that candle, as it were, that light illuminates what's around it, right? But the candle does not need another candle to be able to perceive that. So it's a very interesting example because we often forget that that light is already there inside of us and we're seeking something out there to light the path. So I loved that vision of like, if a candle's lit, it doesn't need another lit candle to be able to perceive or see or have things be illuminated. So I'll leave it to Sam to explicate the deeper meanings of that. There's so much that he says that is so profound. But I remember that with him. My candle's always lit. I don't have to see, right? It can be regenerative. And that's especially what our practice is about, right? Is to keep that lit so that it can then go turn that light around back out into the world.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it's really beautiful. There's getting some notes about painting that's coming in. Okay.
Mm.
And okay, and winter light. This is Joel Promo noticing that the subtlety of winter light. Um, right. That yeah, and that's also something that's really interesting too, is if you pay attention, if you're outside regularly, or you're sensitive to the angles of the sun, or the timing of sunrise and sunset, just the different angles that the sun operates at, um, and the different qualities of light that it casts. I found I've gotten even more sensitive to that since becoming a dog owner in the last 5 years, right? You're out every day, pretty similar time, and you get really sensitive to how what quality of light is present. Yeah, really beautiful. A lot of things to consider here.
When I was sitting today in this particular space where I'm in, there's sun coming in from this window on my left. And it was really variable throughout the sit. Like I felt it was going behind clouds and then it would come back and I could feel that. I think some of the examples that people are giving in the chat, Jill, when she spoke about winter absence as a pause, or someone else spoke about, I liked being in the dark. I prefer the quiet of dark, because my mommy did before me. It was snuggle time. Is the reassurance of something that is anchoring or new or secure being there, right? Like one can be in the dark because, as she said, referenced the parents there, right? Or we can think of a winter absence as a pause because we know that spring is coming, right? Like that midrash about Adam Harishon, the first human being who, when the sun set, had never experienced a sunrise before, right? Didn't know like that it was going to recur. Hamechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom, right? Like that each day renews itself. And so I'm really struck by that in those examples, right? It's
Yeah.
that when the sun is gone, it's that we know it's going to rise again.
Hmm.
That can give us strength to wait for that renewal, as it were.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And interesting to think about that, um, that for us, I mean, again, as we're starting to read the Exodus story, but that, um, that's the one ritual we really have that's focused on the nighttime, right? That really is in the absence of the daytime. That by Yehi b'chatzi halayla comes to pass in the middle of the night. That's when the Exodus happens, and so, yeah, you're giving me something to think about there. What's the relationship,
Yeah.
the
Um,
presence or absence of light?
I'll have to share with you that Cantor Lizzie Shamash on the yoga class, the IJS yoga class this week, shared a beautiful poem by David White that talks about Pokeach Ivrim, opening the eyes, which is such a motif in the new Parsha as we begin the book of Exodus. So I will try, if I can, before we conclude today, to put that into the chat because it's I don't know, Josh, if you're familiar with it or not, but it's a stunning, stunning piece.
I'd love to see it. I don't know this one in particular. Oh, yes. Yeah, I do know this one. Yeah, this is an amazing piece. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So it made me think of that when you were just
Yeah.
reflecting on that as we begin Exodus.
Yeah. The poem, the opening of eyes. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, right. It is Moses in the desert fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes as if to enter heaven and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground.
yeah.
It's hard to go wrong with David White.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you for bringing in the new Parsha this week, the beginning of the book of Exodus, because it is a powerful contrast with what we've had in Genesis. So
Um, sorry, last question, and then we're going to need to wrap up. But is the blessing from the start in the chat? I think it's on the source sheet. I think is what you're.
it
Uh,
is.
and
So
then
what
and
I
there and also sorry, and then no the prayer that from Paul Kipnis. I think that's what they were referring to. So yes,
yes,
that is there.
Elena or Elena, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. I had to paste Rabbi Paul Kipnis's poem in three sections. So if you scan back up on the chat, you'll see that I pasted that in three sections. And that is not on the resource sheet because I just literally found it 10 minutes before the meditation began today. Rabbi Paul Kipnis just wrote that and emailed it to us this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susan, for your set today, your teaching. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and to Rachel for her help. And hope you can join us again tomorrow or whenever you're able to. We will be back at this time, same place. See you then. Thanks, everyone. Be well.
Thank you.
We're going to leave the room open for a little bit to allow folks to save the chat. As a reminder, you can click the three dots in the corner by the X when you have the chat open and click Save Chat, and it will download to your computer.
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.